Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Spotlight with Sandalina, and I'm your talk show host, Sandalina Satar. Today we have on Pankti, who is a South Asian influencer, a New York City event planner, the co-founder of Masala Mixtape and a certified genetics counselor. Thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here and can't wait to have our conversation.
So just so you guys know, whenever you see a South Asian event in New York City on your social media feeds, there's a really good chance that Pankti was involved with the magic behind the scenes, because that's what she does, and she's an integral part of the South Asian community here, and we are so eternally grateful for her.
Thank you so much for having me again. I'm really excited to be here.
So I actually first met Pankti earlier this year at a promo event for Indian Matchmaking. They had launched their new season, and they were hosting a meet and greet and Q&A with the cast at an intimate South Asian restaurant in the city. And I was introduced to Pankti. I don't actually remember who introduced us, but I do remember being so astonished by how calming and down to earth she was. She's kind of like a ray of sunshine. Yeah, I would put it that way. I'm sure a lot of people would too. And I think what really surprised me about Pankti was really getting to know her and understanding that despite being so calm, she's actually behind the scenes managing a lot of the chaos of what we see on our social media feeds. And I was just absolutely flabbergasted at her ability to strike that balance. So I thought that she would be an amazing guest to bring on the show. I'm sure somebody that some of you recognize too from social media. So thanks again for being on, and let's kick this off.
Thank you so much. I'm super excited. Let's go.
So let's start at the very beginning.
Sure, let's do it.
Tell us a little bit more about where you grew up.
Yeah, so I'm originally from the Bay Area, so Northern California, and I honestly feel so lucky to have been brought up in that environment. My parents actually immigrated from Gujarat to, California, and it was so beautiful to be brought up with such a heavy and strong influence of South Asian culture. Like for my family, when they moved, to the Bay, they were all about, finding that space for me to be able to understand where I come from, being able to speak the language, learning how to read and write, and finding ways to connect to it. So I feel so fortunate to be brought up, in that environment.
I can definitely relate to that. So I was also brought up in the Bay Area, and that's something that we actually connected the dots on recently, that we were both raised in the South Bay in California, which is, I was so happy to find out that you were a Bay Area girl too. I was like, wow, there's a bunch of us floating around the city.
Oh, 100%. I think with the pandemic and just in the last few years, a lot of people have moved from California to New York.
Tell me a little bit more about your parents. So if you had to assign archetypes and characteristic traits to them, like what were each of them like individually?
Absolutely. So, one thing that I remember growing up, every single year we grew up going to India. So specifically, in Gujarat, in Ahmedabad, and then we also went to Bombay. And I think, having that environment growing up with them in California and also in India really showed me different characteristics of holistically kind of understanding where they come from. So, I think it's a very classic immigrant story where, my family moved to California for, a better life, a better education. But one thing that was really special, specifically, I'll start off with my dad, is that he is the classic entrepreneur startup guy. He moved to the Silicon Valley.
There we go.
Released and worked on a few startups. And, that was such a special upbringing for myself because, I got the opportunity to watch firsthand how he managed those conversations, how we worked cross-functionally with different teams, how he created something out of nothing during a time where, things were booming in that tech industry in the Bay. Yeah. And I think some of those qualities and, from watching him be so extroverted, a great communicator, learning how he developed relationships with people and even just having that business sense of mind was something that I would say played a pretty integral role as I've grown up over the course of years and even contributing to creating, Masala Mixtape and even the current genetics company that I'm working on. So that's a little bit about my dad. And then my mom, she worked a little bit as well. And a lot of her time and efforts were focused on kind of developing my morals, my values, the qualities that she wanted to instill, working with my dad. And I feel so grateful to have that type of, emotional support throughout my life where she, anytime anything was going on, she had tabs on, when my next test was, or when my next play date was, or whatever it was, her organization, her ability to also establish relationships, finding ways for me to be connecting to, people, the culture, and especially my family was something that I really owe it to them. And I feel like who I am today would be nothing without them. And I give all my credit for, what they did and the environment that they fostered at such a young age.
I really like what you said about your father's entrepreneurial spirit, because also as somebody that grew up in the Silicon Valley, I have to say it's very inspiring and it's very motivating. Like you grow up around people that look like you that are creating in, you know, more of a corporate kind of space or, you know, trying to build up companies from the ground up to get to that bigger level.
Oh, for sure.
And it's so impressive. And what I'm sure you relate to this too, but what I love is when you come to New York City, you see that same entrepreneurial spirit in a completely different realm of things in the creative space.
It's phenomenal. You know, in the last few years, as I've, you know, made my way in New York and just been in the community, I think that's so special about the, you know, scene here, especially within that, you know, South Asian community. A lot of people that we're meeting, they're creators, they're, you know, people that are hustling, whether that's, you know, with their day job and night job, whether they're, you know, giving up their, you know, full-time day job to be able to do their night job. And whatever it is, you know, there's that spark in the people in our community here that, and, you know, when I meet someone like that, I'm like, yeah, you know, like go you, and especially even what you're creating here with this environment, with this podcast is absolutely beautiful. Of course. I mean, this takes, you know, a lot of courage and to be brave and let go of what you're actually, you know, working on, whether that's that corporate culture, to be able to do this, you know, full time and really, you know, bring that community together is super special. So thank you.
Thank you. Oh my gosh. Speaking of something that's heartwarming, I want to go back to your mom.
Sure.
So it sounds like she was a very stable, nurturing kind of peace and solace for you growing up. And I want to take a second to highlight that because I think that mothers that choose to prioritize their children are oftentimes shamed by Western society for doing so. But I think a lot of us can look back on our childhood and say that was pivotal. Like we needed that support.
Oh, 100%. You know, it's wild, like, you know, as I reflect back now, that the fact that, you know, my mom was able to sit with me every single day and have those conversations with me. You know, she took an active interest in what was going on in my day-to-day life. It's so meaningful. And, you know, if I ever needed to talk something out, or if I was ever confused about something or needed, you know, just a sounding board, even at, you know, when you're a kid, and some of those conversations I probably still don't even remember, but I'm sure that everything domino effects in some way or form, and it builds into our character today. So definitely owe a lot of that to her.
That's incredible. That is incredible. Your parents sound amazing, by the way.
No, thank you.
Do you have any siblings?
Yeah, so this is a fun story I love to share. So my dad has one brother and one sister. They all had one kid each. So we're all three only children. So me and my two only children, brothers, we are extremely close. I think we all, you know, share that upbringing of like, hey, you know, we didn't have a sibling, but no worries. Like, we're going to find a way to keep that close. So I think we had a very special kind of relationship as we were growing up. And a really big thing that I personally really care about is having my chosen family. So my friends are my siblings. My friends are my family. They're my community. And that was something that was really integral as I was growing up as well. Even though I, you know, came from such a small family, and even in immediate, like within my own immediate family, I feel so fortunate and lucky to be able to have had so many brothers and sisters right around me. And that didn't make me question the fact that, you know, I was an only child, which is so special, you know, growing up in the Bay.
Yeah. I actually didn't know that. I was expecting you to say older sister because I think a lot of like that leadership, you're like leading the community in a way, right? And it's like a lot of times those are the older sisters. Obviously I'm biased because I'm saying, no, I mean, that's incredible. Like as an only child, you definitely have a different environment versus like what you would have with siblings. Like when you're with siblings, you have to like learn to share at a very young age.
For sure.
But you're just so giving and sharing without that. And I'm sure having your like only child, brothers was also helpful in all of that.
Oh, absolutely. I think having them, you know, they're kind of like my pillars and my foundation. Yeah. And, you know, like having my immediate family and just extended along with my chosen family is kind of the building blocks of what makes me who I am today.
I can definitely see that. But what was your exposure to wealth or lack thereof growing up as a kid?
No, for sure. I think this is something that, you know, I was exposed to, and my family, you know, used to have conversations with me about this. I feel so humbled that they, you know, created those opportunities for me to actually go to India and see the environments that they grew up in. And, you know, I don't think that they were the most well off. You know, I think they were trying to figure out how to create a better life for themselves, for their, you know, future families. I remember these stories when I used to talk to my dad's dad or my grandpa when I was in Gujarat, and, you know, just hearing how he grew up, where, you know, I remember his dad passed away when he was really young. He had a single mom kind of raising him. Wow. He had to kind of figure out how to make money, how to, you know, put himself and his siblings through their marriages. And that was the upbringing my own dad grew up with. And him witnessing all this as the oldest out of, you know, 3 kids, he took on that pressure, and, you know, like, I'm going to try to figure out how I'm going to, you know, provide for them. I'm going to find a way to go to, you know, the United States and create this environment for my family so that I can support my family back home. And that experience and just hearing about it, seeing it firsthand, allows me to really appreciate, you know, everything that I have today is a direct byproduct of what my parents, my grandparents, I'm sure my grandparents did, so that I could even be sitting here today and being able to do the things that I love. You know, I think we were talking about this earlier. I feel so fortunate that I can be full-time on events right now, that I can create my own genetics company where, you know, I can kind of go outside of that classic 9-to-5 corporate job to be able to do something that makes me happy. And I don't know if my own parents had those opportunities when they were, you know, our age at that time. So I really appreciate it and I feel so humbled that you know, the way they talk to me about wealth and the way they expose to me lets me really be grateful for what I have today.
Yeah. And I think that humility is the most important when it comes 100%. To man, especially, you know, you're coming from nothing to building something for your family that can be cross-generational. And I love what you touched upon is it's cross-generational efforts that brought us to where we are today. It is our ancestors, it's our parents, it's the immigrant story. And another thing that I really like is, you know, you're kind of touching upon this, and this is the crux of the show, is there's two American dreams happening in parallel. There's our parents' American dream, which was, you know, coming to this country and surviving, and God bless their souls. And then there's our American dream, which I think we're still working on building out as our generation evolves. Yeah. But it's like we will craft our own story and our own path, and it's going to be a little bit different. It's going to be a little bit less traditional, maybe a little bit less corporate, maybe a little more creative. Yeah. And I think that's the whole point is coming to this country so that your kids have the privilege to choose. It's a choice. I
love that, how you phrase that. You're absolutely right. It's the fact that we have the ability to have that freedom, that independence, that choice that you spoke of. I think you beautifully put that together.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. So a little bit more about your upbringing. Let's go back to the school days, the academic days. So tell me a little bit more. What were your dreams as a kid? Like, what did you want to be growing up when you were younger?
As I was a kid, I just wanted to be a doctor. It was interesting. Anytime anyone would come home, my parents bought me this Fisher Price little bag had a fake stethoscope and a little blood pressure cup. And anytime anyone would come home, I'd be like, come, I want you to be my patient and I want to talk to you. Like, how are you doing? How are you feeling? How can I make you feel better? And that was weirdly innate to me, or something that I really wanted to do. And I don't think I really questioned it. You know, it's funny. We didn't really have any doctors in our family as well. So it wasn't like, I was modeling myself off of someone. I think I gravitated towards that whenever I used to go for my doctor appointments. And I was always so curious about the medical world and healthcare at such a young age. And I really liked talking to other people about health. That was something that I just remember having like memories of when I was really little. And then as I grew older, I just remember loving people. Like I love meeting people, and I love that, you know, conversations with other people and understanding why people are the way they are is something that's just so fascinating to me. And I remember really liking that. My dad used to joke around when I was a kid, and he always told me, Pankti, you are such a part of the Y generation. Every single time anyone did anything, I would just be like, why? Why does it have to be that way? Why is it this way? So I remember constantly just questioning things as a kid as well.
No, I completely relate with that. And I think it's important to question what is, you know, what we see as normal and what institutions and systems are telling us, like, this is the path. And I think that having that curiosity intellectually from a young age is absolutely incredible. I mean, and I love that, you know, you've always been kind of like a healer, like nurturer is like the vibe I'm getting from all of this. And there's such a common thread in all of that. And I think that's inspiring.
Oh, thank you so much.
Tell me a little bit more about high school. So when you were in high school, what was your personality like?
I was very academically in tune at that time in high school. I really cared about, you know, doing well, being disciplined on that. And, you know, my family really prioritized and really cared about education. You know, just from when I was in preschool, I just remember all throughout high school, I think they had that emphasis, but I think somehow maybe internally I was also motivated to want to do well. And maybe a part of it was, hey, you know, my parents took this huge leap of faith to come to California and come to the States, leaving home. And, you know, I think in some weird way, maybe there was that internal pressure where it's like, I don't want to disappoint. And of course, at that time, you're young and, you know, you're still trying to understand, mature, and figure things out.
Tell me a little bit more about college. So where did you go to school? What did you study? And what was your college experience like?
Yeah, so my undergraduate experience was at Santa Clara University. So I stayed in the Bay throughout that time. And I took on some couple hard majors. So I ended up doing like a dual degree and a double major in biomedical engineering and math. It really fascinated me. When it came to the biomedical engineering, I loved science. I loved healthcare from a very young age, but kind of being formally taught that was something super interesting to me. And I wanted to see how science and technology could impact society.
Yeah.
And then from the math side of things, I think that was purely, I was just like stimulated by mathematics. I think I really liked it when I was younger. And then I was like, hey, you know what? Let me see if I could do it in college. And that one was really tough. I think from a theory and application point of view, I think that it was a really challenging major, but I really loved the stimulating proofs, the conversations, and the type of community that it built as well. So those are the two majors that I pursued.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. No, I really applaud you. So my story is I really like what you said about mathematics. Yeah. So I've always been like highly analytical, and I've always really enjoyed mathematics too growing up in high school. And so I went to community college first, and I transferred to Berkeley. In community college, I like went through all the lower division math classes possible, like through multivariable calculus, linear algebra, and I understood it, and I did well, and I was at the forefront of the class at that school. But then I got to Berkeley, and then I started seeing math. I started taking upper division math classes. Then I started seeing math on the whiteboard that just started looking like hieroglyphs, and I was like, I need to get out. I literally remember getting up in a lecture, and I was like, I can't do this. I was like, I'm just gonna do one business major, forget it. All of that to say, wow, because I remember walking out of that lecture and just being like, I thought I loved math, but not this much. Not this much.
I feel like college I feel like those upper division classes takes you to a whole nother level of theory.
It's so abstract. So when you were at Santa Clara University, you were living on campus?
I actually was living at home. It was about a 15, 20 minute
save so
drive.
Much money.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
And I get it too. So I was commuting for the first 2 years as well. And it's nice to have that support. It's like, absolutely. Home cooked meals.
Oh, my gosh.
Nothing beats that. You graduated from Santa Clara University. So tell me about your journey after that.
Sure. I wanted to pursue a career within that biotech space. So I accepted, so the next two jobs, one is at Genentech. I worked as a human factors engineer. And then the other one, more interestingly, is with Abbott Labs. And I had a rotational program with them where every 6 months I moved to a different part of the country, whether it was SF, LA, or Chicago, and got trained as a different type of engineer, whether that's in quality, whether that's, regulatory, manufacturing operations. And I really appreciated that because it taught me how to be flexible, how to really uproot yourself, move yourself to a completely different environment with a new team and new friends, how to build a community around you within such a short amount of time and learn how to create a whole life around it. And I thought that was a really useful skill at such a young age. And so I was in the industry in the biomed space for about 4.5 years. I heard about this field called genetic counseling while I was in undergrad, and that fascinated me. Hearing about how there's an industry out there where it talks about healthcare, educating people about what you're born with, which you have no control over, and then the counseling side of it. I love counseling. The psychology behind being able to be there for someone in the way that's best for that person, tailored for that individual, is something that has always been interesting to me. So, finding the fusion of that within this field always was something I wanted to, find a way to create this opportunity for myself. So kind of right after undergrad, I was taking some classes, taking the GREs, whatever I needed to do. And I applied to grad school and moved to Chicago and went to Northwestern's.
Nice.
It's their Feinberg School of Medicine. It's a master's program, and I pursued genetic counseling there.
Tell us a little bit more about your experience at grad school. So what was that like?
Yeah, so, genetic counseling is so interesting. Northwestern's program, and I would say majority of the grad school genetic counseling programs are pretty small. They're quite intimate. Northwestern's was 20 students. So most programs are in the range of 10 to 20. And I think that it's quite intentional because they're really fine-tuning and training your skill set on how to be a genetic counselor. One of my favorite classes, imagine you're in a clinic room and we are hiring patients to play, like actors to play the role of patients with different medical problems, different emotional things going on. And in the room, imagine you have 10 different cameras, videos on you, and they're watching how you move your hands, how you keep eye contact, how you communicate. And, the grad school program really fine-tuned bedside manners, which I really honestly wish that all educational forms from when you were kids taught you these skill sets on how to communicate, how to build relationships, how to have honest, good, facilitating conversation that makes both people feel heard, understood, seen. And it was so nice to be able to, be trained on those qualities by being within the grad school format. And, one thing that was really important within Northwestern was exposure and a lot of breadth of knowledge. So, we got to pursue 10 to 12 different types of clinical rotations. My favorite ones, I got the opportunity to go to London for a peds cardio rotation and Singapore for a cancer rotation.
That's amazing.
So I got to live abroad for a little bit of time, understand their healthcare systems, but also on the other end, enjoy personally and explore what life is like in a different country. And those were more solo trips, which I really appreciated because, typically I'm used to traveling with friends, but really got to go on a more individualistic journey to be able to reflect and see, hey, where am I at today? Like, how does it feel to be in a whole different world in a different country when you really just don't know anybody?
So how long were you in London and Singapore?
2 months, about 2 months in each location.
Wow.
So I feel like it was enough time where I got to explore a little bit of that city and that environment, but not enough time that I still want to go back and live there if I can.
If New York City didn't exist, I'd
London
be in London
is another New York.
London, I'm like, after grad school, how did you end up in New York? Walk us through that.
Yeah. So after I finished up with grad school, I made a decision to myself where, okay, if I'm going to move, either, typically it's been with career or academics. This time I made a personal move. I told myself if 2 of my best friends move with me, I'm going to make the move to New York. I'll find a job. I'll do it. It was right around the time of the pandemic, and I got lucky. Not only just did 2 of my best friends move, but somehow we all domino affected off of one another. And next thing you know, within a year of New York, I believe there were over 100 of us living all together in Murray Hill, Kips Bay area.
Oh my God.
Within 5 minutes of walking distance.
100?
Yes. All the friends that I had from all corners of the world, from SF, LA, Chicago, New York, all congregated in New York at the same time. And I think 12 of us lived in the same building. It felt like that sense of community right when I started, when I moved to a new city, which was so nice to have, right off the bat.
Oh my God. You don't hear that every day.
Yeah.
I moved with 100 other people to New York City.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I feel so lucky to have had that support system right off the bat. And that's also where, I worked in clinic as a genetic counselor. So that's what I was doing, daytime by profession. And nighttime, prior to events, I was actually a club promoter. I still am.
I can see that. I can see that.
Because we had a lot of people in the community and wanted to help out all these venues and clubs and bring business to them, but also make it easy for me and my friends to, have a really fun nightlife experience in New York.
Let's, flash to the present.
Yeah.
You have a social media presence and you are event planning. So tell me a little bit more about how all of that kind of came to be on the side of genetics counseling.
I was club promoting for a little bit of time. One of my teammates, he came up to me and he was like, hey, Pankti, I have this ticketing platform called Handstamp. You love bringing people together. What do you think about working together? Let's come up with a really cool idea. And the idea at that time was our first event, Rungrave. It was a holy event. And I remember...
what year is this?
This is actually last March. So it has.
Oh, this is recent.
Yeah,
oh my
so
gosh.
it's been about a year and a half since I've started, everything with the event side of things on a more professional front. And I remember, I talked to myself at that time. There wasn't, much going on within the South Asian community at that time. There were a few organizations, but I thought, hey, you know what? Let's try it out. It's post-pandemic. I'd be happy if maybe like 100 or maybe 200 people come.
Yeah.
800 people
signed
up to come.
Oh my God.
To a point that I had to do, we had a daytime holy and a nighttime holy because I didn't want to not let anyone in and wanted to make sure everyone who wanted to come got to enjoy that amazing festival. So that's where it kind of all began. And next thing you know, we're talking about Masala Mixtape, our South Asian music festival, which was just a brain cell idea being like, I remember personally thinking, hey, I go to Coachella, I go to EDC, I love music festivals. Why isn't there a space for our South Asian community where we can bring this, up and coming new talent, also, honor the talent that's existed within our community for so many years and put them all on stages, bring some sponsors, bring some vendors, bring the community together. And it was just an idea. And I remember at that time, 3 months in, Masala Mixtape, here we go. So, that just, kicked off. And next thing you know, we launched a lot of different events like Diwali Drop, Confessions this year, did a few events. I remember where we met up earlier. I did a Jab We Met event with Sima Auntie. I've also been kind of diverging and doing my own events. I think where we also met, where I did a Sima Auntie event just kind of on my own. So it's kind of what I've been dabbling in now, being full-time on the events, where trying to create my own opportunities and work with creators in our community where there's so many people who have brilliant ideas and trying to create that space so that I can help make their vision come true.
Yeah, and I mean, you've been so successful. The turnout for Masala Mixtape was huge. I mean, everybody across like the country, I feel like, knows there's this Masala Mixtape in New York City. I want to get into the Sima Auntie events that you've been mentioning.
Sure.
It's like, how does that even,
How does it happen?
how do you go from club promoting to like getting hundreds of South Asian people together to like somebody on your Netflix screen just in your contacts? Like, how does that happen?
I think it's serendipity. It's a lot of time in life. It's like the right place, the right time, the right energy. I do think, there was effort, there was time, energy put into it. But I think, with the Sima Auntie scenario, I just remember being at Bar and I was there for an event.
Bar, the one and only.
The one and only Bar. I love it. And I remember Sima Auntie, walking in and, talking to the owner of Bar. And, I saw her and her husband there. And, everyone got super excited.
Yeah.
Everyone was running towards Sima Auntie. I remember talking to her husband for a while because, I was just giving everyone else a chance. I'm like, I'll eventually talk to her. I remember talking to her husband and I'm like, hey, so in 4 days, I'm hosting this event called Jab We Met. It's going to be at the DL. It's a Valentine's event. Pitched it to him. I'm like, we'll have 600 people come. I would love for Sima Auntie to, stop by and check it out. And so next thing you know, her husband and I are in touch. Next thing you know, Sima Auntie and I are in touch.
Gosh.
It was just an elevator pitch. And next thing you know, she's convinced. And here she is at my event 4 days later. And, she's meeting people, talking to people. She did a little fun dance. And then we stayed in touch. And, I always told her, whenever you're back, let me know. I'm happy to do an event for you. And I think this was around the time her season 3 was launching. And that was the season 3 launch party that I wanted to, she was excited, wanted to help her out and put that together for her. So that's kind of how that connection happened. But a lot of the ideas, I feel like so fortunate with my team members to be able to be ideating and coming up with creative ideas that we can bring our whole South Asian community together. And there's just so much love and energy in the room. And I think that is honestly what's been so motivating to keep continuing and coming up with new ideas.
One thing I want to point out in all of this is it was you taking that leap of faith and going up to her as a total stranger and just be like, hey, we don't know each other, but I have this big, and this could be mutually beneficial for both of us, so why don't you swing by? And I think that there's something to be said about just taking that risk. And I think a lot of people have these fantasies and these ideas, there's a difference between dreamers and doers.
Yes.
And the way to convert is to do. You obviously have to dream it. Everybody's a dreamer at one point, but you have to do to be the doer versus stay a dreamer.
I think through and through, I am an executor. I think I've been told this. I love getting stuff done. If there's an idea, whatever way I can figure it out, we're going to find a way to make it happen. I remember reading this quote a long time ago where it's like, if you can believe it, then you can perceive it. If you can perceive it, then you can achieve it. And I think I really believe life is about manifestation. And in your head, if you can create this vision for yourself and find a way, I believe you yourself and the world around you is going to create that environment for you to execute and make it happen. And I think having that manifestation and believing that early on is that real big driver force and, seeing that vision come to life.
That's a part of everybody's journey in New York City. And I want to share for a second too, that's exactly how it goes. Like I moved to New York City in summer of 2022, a year and a half ago. It's crazy saying that now. I mean, I just remember just, absolutely like not knowing that many people, maybe a few people from college, whatever. I was drowning in my job with investment banking. And like, I just was so isolated. And my only escape from that was like scrolling through social media, which like, healthy or not, debatable, but whatever. And then I started learning about all these like individuals, like some that I'd seen on my social media when I was at home, but a lot of new faces. And I was like, oh wait, there's a whole ecosystem here.
Oh, absolutely.
And then I started having these like literal delusions where I was like, I could be like, I would want to like meet these people that have had such a profound impact on the community. And then a year and a half later, it's like, like here we are. And it all starts with an idea. It's all an idea. You have to just put yourself in the right places at the right time. Nothing happens from sitting at home.
No, absolutely.
You have to put yourself out there. It's like, I'm sure for you, for me, it was showing, I would literally not know people. I literally would know 0 people. And I'd say, oh, I saw this. I'm just going to go introduce myself to like everybody in the room.
I love that. I love that. And that's exactly the energy that, I feel like connects both of us in this conversation where it's like, you know what? Like, what do you have to lose?
Nothing.
I mean, literally nothing. I'm a big believer of like, if you want something, or if you're even if there's a 1% in you of like, hey, I want to try that, or why not? I really believe that we're on this planet for such a short time. Like life is short, and take those opportunities when they come in front of you. And it's interesting, like you are your own worst critic, and you're I feel like your mindset is the only thing that can stop you in achieving what you want. And I think the fact that, similar to what you said, you went up there, I'm going to talk to anyone, even though I don't know anyone, shamelessly, let's go. I'm going to put myself out there. And, I think that's something so brave and, risky and kind of
scary.
Uncomfortable and scary, but it gets a little easier and it gets a little, once
exactly.
a little bit over time. It's like, when you're about to go on that roller coaster and that first time you're like, oh, I'm a little scared of what's going to happen. But then the next time you're like, oh, it was scary, but I kind of like the thrill with it.
It's a little easier.
A little bit easier, a little bit more fun. So no, I love that you share that experience.
The thing that I love is like, the more times you do it, the easier it gets. And also the more familiar faces you start having in the room.
Exactly.
And I think that is the key is you to build the community, you have to just insert yourself. You have to just force yourself in, obviously politely, kindly, and genuinely with authenticity.
I always say this, that I love love. And I think the
Me
moment
too.
I know, and the moment you like, I believe when you put yourself out there, you're smiling, you're positive, you're showing some love, and you genuinely, as you said, authentically want to be there and are excited. I would hope that, that environment that you're in will give that right back to you and, show you that same type of love and energy. And I really do feel that on a day-to-day basis while living in New York City, along with the events that I attend or organize.
I was having a conversation with somebody else in the community, and she was saying that if you can dream it, there's a reason that you're dreaming it. It's not because you're like delusional coming up with like for example, I don't have any dreams of being a ballerina.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Ballerinas, incredible, beautiful, amazing. I've never once dreamt of being a ballerina. It's like, it's just not, but I've dreamt about doing this, and I'm sure same for you. You haven't dreamt about bungee jumping from like the Empire State Building.
Definitely not.
But maybe you've dreamt about like putting on these big events and like having an impact, and here you are.
I know, it's wild, right? And now you're, it's so fun to, even for yourself, to be living in it now. Like you're doing this, you're creating this environment. We're having this conversation right now because you visioned it at some point. And if anything, it's going to be interesting to see what's going to be the next step that Sandalina takes. What's the next moment where are you going to take this forward? What's the next vision? What's the next thought?
So I want to talk more about the social media side of what you do. So you started with event planning and you're doing an amazing job with that.
Thank you.
But you also have an influencer presence because, everybody knows you, they know who you are, and you're partnering with all these like beautiful South Asian brands. And tell me a little bit more about that side of that.
It's been such a phenomenal opportunity. Within the social media presence, it's something that's super important to me is uplifting and bringing different brands to the platform that align with my value system, that are, are from that South Asian background, especially the ones that are up and coming and new, and especially, just struggling to get the word out, finding a way that, hey, I want this community in New York to be a little bit more aware of it. Similarly with Masala Mixtape, any of the events that I do, I typically try to partner with, local or national South Asian brands because I want to get their product in the hands of our community because I love it and I want to just help them, form that channel of communication. I really believe that who I am and where I'm at today is a direct byproduct of me being connected to people. Someone lent a hand to me and someone shook my hand and connected me to someone. And I'm a big believer in that. If I can connect anyone to anyone within the community in the world, why not? This is how we do it. This is how we all hold hands together and we're creating this community all together and we're standing on each other to be able to create such a beautiful environment.
Yeah, I love that mentality. Now I want to contrast it for a second. There in influencer space, some types of people enjoy sort of like exclusivity, like I'm too good to talk to this person, I'm too good to help this person. But what I really admire about you is you foster this sort of inclusive environment. You say there's room for everyone, and I
100%.
It's true. There's enough for all of us to go around. There's 7 billion people on the planet, and it does. Lending a helping hand does not lower you.
No, it uplifts you.
It uplifts you, if anything. And people have. I've met people, and I'm like, oh my god, you have it so backwards. You think that if you help someone, you're coming down? No, we're all lifting each other up.
We wouldn't be here today if someone wasn't lifting a hand for us.
Exactly.
I think from the moment we were born into this world, maybe it was our parents or our immediate family or our friends, like everyone has helped one another to get to where we are today. And I feel so humbled by everything that I'm doing today. I feel like it's a big thank you from me to my world, being like, thank you for giving me the opportunity to be able to do what I'm doing today. And I hope that I can help and continue to give other people those same opportunities to do the same as well. 100%.
Absolutely. So in all of this, have you ever had a moment where you have just been like starstruck that like you can't even believe that you're in the same room as like so-and-so?
Interesting. I think before I started events, I did think I would be starstruck. I thought that, oh my gosh, I'm going to meet this artist or this celebrity or this person. But when it came down to the day of, or when I did meet those individuals, whether it was an artist that I've been talking to for months leading up to the event, no, I didn't feel starstruck. I felt when I met all these artists for Masala, or when I met these amazing poets for our confessions events, or these artists, what I felt was, this is that person in the room crushing it.
Yeah.
I am so proud
Yeah.
that they are doing what they truly love and are meant to do in this world, and that they define for themselves. So to be honest, I'm just so happy for them. I think there's no beautiful feeling in the world when every person in this world can do what they genuinely feel like they were meant to do, or whatever. I'm a big believer on doubling down on your strengths. And if you are able to find a way in your self-awareness journey and figure out what you want to do in this world and what you want to create, and you can change that any moment in time, of course. I love meeting people like that, and whenever in any environment that I'm in, I'm just excited. And most of the times I'm just like, I'm so proud of you, and like, great job in doing what you're doing, and thank you for making such a beautiful impact, especially as you go up the ladder and and become that celebrity level individual where a lot of people are watching you. It's beautiful to see what they're doing with that, attention, that focus for our world and community. So basically no starstruck, but just happy and excited to meet that person and have that person in my life.
Yeah. I love that answer. I think it's relatable too. I think when I first moved to New York City, I also thought like, oh, like all these people I've seen before, like, whoa, like if I see them in person, that'd be crazy. And literally you run into these people, whether it's like on the street or like at an event, and you're just like, oh, like they're people. Like we're all just people. This is so cool. This is just so cool what they're doing. And I'm so like, I love seeing people take their passions and turn them into an impact. To see that output product, that's huge. That's huge. So to maintain everything that you do, you have to be constantly on the go. And that's something that I relate to too. It's like with investment banking, with social media, with like running wholesome hangouts, with now trying to launch this talk show. It's like, I feel like I am constantly on, and I am so grateful. This is an amazing problem to have. Life is a set of problems, and if these are the problems I have, oh, thank the Lord. These are the best problems in the world to have. But I will say, sometimes I'm just like so drained. I'm like, I'm always on. I'm constantly on the go. So I want to talk about that. What is that like, the good and the bad?
Sure. No, to your point, I love it. I think when I'm in a room meeting people, whether it's attending, whether it's hosting, I love that environment of, building connections, building friendships. I feel that energy in the room where it's like my energy, your energy are here. And we're so excited to be here for whatever that reason has brought us together. And like, if there's a way that we can work together, help each other out, or just we're here to vibe. Like, I love that being on feeling. But to your point, yes, the other side of it is, it can be draining. And I think as personally extroverted as I am a big believer of taking time to yourself and carving out that moment to have me time, to be able to sit with your own thoughts, to be able to process what have you been up to, what are you doing, to set visions and goals for yourself on what you are trying to accomplish. Because I think not setting those moments for yourself, you kind of just are kind of on the go, actively just pressing that play button and not really taking that moment to pause and be like, hey, this is awesome, this is happening, but like, well, am I okay? Like, is this sustainable? Am I healthy mentally, physically? I think that's super important to me. So I think as I, plan out my weeks, as I do as an event planner and I'm calendaring everything, I actually do take, a couple days in the week where I'm like, okay, this time block, I'm not going to see anyone, or this time block, I'm just going to journal, or I'm going to read, or I'm going to focus on me. Or sometimes it's just chilling on my bed and watching a show or a movie.
We all need that time.
Yeah, and eating some really good
human
Thai
time.
food. Yeah, exactly. So I think that's something that I really do focus and prioritize on as I'm on all the events and everything too.
Do you ever feel burnt out?
To be honest, years ago, I think there was a time in me, I remember distinctly living in San Francisco, and I felt that social burnt out where, oh my goodness, I am seeing someone every couple times a day, every single day, and it's just a lot. And I felt a little bit lost at that time.
Yeah, I get it.
And after all these years, going through that experience, I remember telling myself, if I ever go down that path again or catch myself, I'm going to make sure that I will take a pause and breathe and really reorient my life. There are moments where I wouldn't say that, oh, yes, I'm on so much or I'm going to too many events. Realistically, I do feel sometimes those moments creeping in, but I think I've gotten a little bit better at catching myself. And when those moments happen where I'm like, oh, like if I keep going, I might get to that point. So no, I don't think in New York I've felt burnt out. But it's because I think those experiences happened a little bit earlier in my life where I was able to understand, learn, and now I'm trying to implement and execute that so that I don't get to that point. But I know we're at the end of the day human, and will there be a future point where I do get there? No, absolutely, it's possible. But you know, if that moment does happen, I think I know how to catch myself and put myself and just ground myself again. And if I can, I feel so lucky to be surrounded by a support system who will help me through that journey if I'm ever there as well.
You've taken the lessons from the past and the wisdom that you've developed and in your personal evolution to really have that dialogue with yourself and check in. And I think, you know, I like that. And it gives me hope because, you know, I'm like 23 years old and I am burnt out, to be honest. But it's because I'm doing something that I don't love for so many hours a week. So I think that it's a testament that when you do what you love and what you're truly meant to do, that burnout, you'll be able to manage. You'll be able to manage. And I think that it's just, that's inspiring.
No, thank you for saying that. No, thank you. And I really love what you just said is doing what you love is so important. And I know sometimes, you know, life creates situations where that might not be possible, but I think I would encourage it for people to find that opportunity to figure out what that is and be able to push yourself to do what you love. Because I really don't think my work feels like work because there's nothing else in this world I would be
You'd
doing.
rather be doing. Yeah. So how do you work on managing your friendships? I feel like when I'm so busy and running around between so many things, I'm neglecting my close friends because I don't have the time to sit down and really dive into what's going on in your life because I have 50 million things running in my own. I feel like it's like the more people you know, the less you know about people.
Absolutely.
Right? So like, how do you manage that?
One thing that's been important to me since I was very young is having that core group of your best friends that are my chosen family. I remember us talking about that chosen family.
Yeah,
I have my chosen family and I'm of course open to growing that. I would not be here today if I didn't have that support system with me. I really work hard to prioritize all my best friends, my community, and just being there for them. And for me, you know, those surface level conversations, I'm sure those happen every now and then, but to me, it is those depth. How just dive in. Like, how are you actually doing? Like, emotionally, mentally. And if you're not okay, how am I, Pankti, going to help you get to where you want to be in life? I always tell this to all my friends. Your problems are my problems. So whatever.
So sweet.
No, I really
so
believe
sweet.
that like what you're going through is your experience, and I'm going to find a way to empathize, and we're going to find a way. I'm going to put myself in your shoes, and we're going to get you from point A to B to C, and whatever we need to do to get there, however long it takes, whatever moment you need in life, I'm here for you. And I will figure out a way. We're going to plan, we're going to reschedule whatever it is in my other priorities in life. Because to me, my friends, my family, they're my everything. Like they're the ones that get me through life. They're the ones that I rely on when I'm not okay, vice versa. And I will do anything for my people and my community. And if you're in my life and if you're ever going through something, like I will find a way to be there for you. And I genuinely mean that. Like I feel people's pain when they're going through something, or I feel when people are not okay. And if I can do anything in my remote hands or power to help them through it, I will do it in a heartbeat.
So I've had kind of an interesting evolution with that.
Yeah.
I feel like I used to be very, very, very empathetic. Yeah. And then I think I like flipped a switch once I moved to New York and just got so burnt out by my job that I feel like my empathy meter just like slowly started dwindling because I started feeling people's emotions so much that it started impacting my own mental health. Sure. So how do you kind of have that barrier?
You know, I think from a young age, I think I kind of learned through experiences where kind of similar to what you described, where I did start feeling, oh man, these are a lot of emotions. These are a lot of things. So I think I had moments of feeling emotionally overwhelmed. Yeah. I think being self-aware, I think that took one step, but then also learning on how to go through the journey and really dissect and separate myself and being able to recognize, be aware, but be able to be there for someone while also being mindful on what my abilities are and my potential was something very key. I actually think even going to grad school taught me how to really fine tune that skill set. Within genetic counseling, you know, a lot of my conversations are with patients going through really debilitating diseases. Sometimes I'm delivering really difficult information, whether that's stage 3, stage 4, terminal cancer, or whatever it is. And that's tough. And those emotions can be draining, overwhelming. And you know, I think going through that for a couple of years in grad school and then even working in that environment really taught me how to work on that skill set, on checking in first with myself in terms of, hey, what is my emotional bandwidth today? Like, can I actually be able to be there for you in the way that's authentic, but also helpful to you? Because there's no point in just me sitting there. I mean, sure, sometimes people just need to just be there physically in person or to be able to just vent. But the other times it's that heaviness in conversation. And yes, sometimes it can be draining, but making sure checking in with yourself, being like, hey, can I handle this today? And if I can't, communicating that to my friend or whoever it is, being like, hey, I might not be able to do this for you at this very moment, but give me like an hour or two, or give me the next day, and I'm going to make sure I'm present emotionally there for you in the way that it's right by you, you know? So I think that's very
that communication element, I think is really key to maintaining those friendships and having that open relationship. I admire that. That's
absolutely.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, no, I feel like communication is everything. And first of all, even knowing yourself and figuring out what your limits and bandwidths and what you can do. And then also being able to communicate that to your friends, your family, your partner, whoever that is, you know?
Yeah. So you recently made a big switch to event planning full time. Yes. So tell me a little bit more about that. And so are you able to sustain yourself?
It's been only a couple months since I've been fully on the events full time, where it's and or with the company, but also just Pankti Doshi as an individual trying to work with creators. And for the last couple months, it's been working, you know, from a financial element, but also just emotionally, personally. To be honest, it's really fun. Yeah, I love it.
That's amazing.
I love
That's
waking
a dream.
up. I know. I love waking up every day and being like, okay, what am I gonna do today? I can do whatever I want. If I actually want to go work out or grab coffee with someone before I start, I can do it. I have that flexibility. I have that freedom. I have that choice. And it's been so fun to be creative and to even meet individuals like you and bounce ideas and be sounding boards and be like, ooh, do you have a fun idea? Okay, cool. And as I mentioned, I'm an executor through and through. So if I come across a really cool idea by working with someone, I'm going to find a way to make it happen.
That's beautiful. Yeah. So I want to switch gears.
Sure.
Let's talk about love. So tell me a little bit about your general philosophy on love and your outlook on it.
I love love, and I think it comes in such different forms. You know, I think it can come in forms of friendship. Yeah. It can come forms in family. It could be romantic towards your partner, and it could be towards your passion and career. I think love, you know, it's funny. The English dictionary only has one word for love, but I know there's other languages out there that have different words for these different forms of love. And, you know, I think that's so beautiful. And I think it's one of the most incredible things we can do as humans. And I believe that we have infinite ability to give that love and receive. And I'm a big believer on always giving that, no matter who I'm with, no matter where I'm at. I really believe that if I can give that, I think love is powerful in ways, you know, even personally, even on the receiving end, feeling heard, feeling understood. Healing something that maybe in a conversation, I didn't know that someone was going through something, and maybe just giving that a little bit of love or a little bit of that focus and intention could help someone out. And a lot of times, I think most of the times you meet people, you never really know what's going on behind doors. And sometimes people are not comfortable sharing whatever it is that is going on in their lives. I think love is such a powerful tool and mechanism. And I genuinely love it, and I love giving it.
I love that you touched on like all the different forms on love too. It's not always just romantic. There's such a strong bond when it comes between, you know, a daughter and her parents, a sister and a brother. And it's just like, there's so many different ways that you can experience it and share it. So I think that's beautiful. Digging a little bit more into romantic love. Tell me what's been your kind of like ideation of it as a kid, like maybe versus now? Has it evolved? Has it changed?
I remember as a kid, you know, you're so young, and I think my love traditionally came from the Bollywood movies. I remember Kuch Kuch Hota Hai was my first Bollywood movie that I ever watched in the theaters with my family. And I remember, oh my gosh, is this what love is? And, you know, it was so cute and I was so young. But I think, to be honest, love was even more defined by the relationships that I surrounded myself with, whether those were my parents, whether those were my grandparents, whether those were my friends, you know, and watching that. I think a lot of my earlier life was observing those and taking in the good, the bad, really understanding, hey, this is a quality that I think I really care about. For example, communication, you know, understanding yourself, finding a way to express if I'm not okay or if my partner's not okay, how can I help them? So I think, you know, observing was a very important thing. And then throughout my life, you know, I've been in multiple romantic relationships. And I think one of my favorite things about just being in those relationships is that it's a partnership, no matter whether it's, you know, it's just similar to the way you are with your friends, your family. I think at the end of the day, you and your life partner are going on this journey for people who want to get married. And for me, you know, just similarly, like me and my future partner, I'm really excited to experience life together. I'm excited to become masters of one another and to be able to be there for each other in ways that we can, but also being mindful on what we can't do. And I don't think one person can do everything for another person in anything in life. Yeah, but being able to do whatever I can and bring my best foot forward, and when I can't, expressing that. And I think going back to that earlier point about love, I think love is something that is beautiful even on the romantic side, where it can bring you closer in ways that are even hard to describe. So I think a lot of my understanding of love and relationships, of course, that earlier was Bollywood, but I think as I grew older, I think a lot of it came from family, from my friends, and I'm constantly trying to, learn about it. It's funny, love is one of those concepts that, or marriage, for example, it's an institution that we're never really taught how to be married.
Yeah.
For example, we go to school, we take on all these schools of thoughts and learning about different subjects. But, I really wish there was a class on love. I really wish there was a class on forming relationships, finance. And there's all these different topics I wish that our educational systems had, because it would be so nice to be a little bit more fine-tuned and educated on how to commit to someone for such a long period of time, which a lot of times, a lot of us aren't really exposed to that from a young age. I mean, we see we might see what our parents have.
We have an idea. It's always skewed.
Exactly. And we really don't figure out until we're there. But it would, I remember in college, I used to actually watch a lot of TED Talks and I'll read a lot of books on love, or like how to form a really healthy partnership, whether that's a friendship or even just a romantic partnership. So I'm a big believer on life is about learning, and I think love is still something that I'm constantly learning more about, and I'm excited to go on that romantic journey in the future too.
I appreciate what you said about that beauty of having that life partner and that feeling of companionship, and that's something that I talk about like myself on TikTok and stuff like that too. It's there is such a beauty in experiencing the world as a pair. Absolutely. There's also a beauty in experiencing it independently, and I think it's about striking that balance. That there are phases of your life. One point I try to make is to try to dispel that notion in the Western society. It's like, oh, I don't need anyone.
Oh yeah.
No, I think that we need love, and it doesn't mean that you're like desperate or overly reliant on the opposite sex. It's literally just this beautiful companionship. It's about creating like your own family. If you want to do that, you don't have to do that. But it's about the prospect of just sharing in that happiness with somebody. There's moments where I just have like a big win. Yeah. Like I just have this like this big achievement, or I got over this thing, or I got this thing I really wanted. Yeah. And I just sit there and I'm like, oh, okay, I'll call my parents. Yeah. And like, of course, like, I love calling my parents, but I have those moments where I'm like, sometimes life just feels like it's meant to be experienced in pairs in certain parts of it, in certain stages of life. And I think it's beautiful to appreciate all of it, the independence, the companionship, and I think it all goes hand in hand, and that's life.
I love how you just described this, and it was such a beautiful fusion of like experiencing love in such different forms within community and within life. And I just think that because we have it and it's something that you can feel so deeply and can have so much impact, why not just give it endlessly?
Why not give it?
It's a beautiful infinite gift.
I think when people are in love, they learn so much about themselves. Yeah. What have been your key learnings from love? Like, what have you learned about yourself that was like, whoa, I didn't know this about myself. Or, oh, maybe this is something I need to work on in myself.
I constantly go through this journey. I mean, through experiences of love and even just life in general, I think it's really important to take time and focus on yourself and figure out, hey, like these are the qualities that I really want to work on or focus on at this moment in time. I remember at one point, and I'm still, working on it, is really finding that balance. I think we talked about it a little bit earlier with, managing friendships, family, like social life, managing that with career, your health, just time by yourself. I think working on fine tuning and really just making sure that I'm having that conversation with myself, being like, okay, you can do this or can you not? Or if you can't, just making sure to listen to your mind, your body, and responding accordingly. So that's one thing I'm personally really still focusing on, still trying to prioritize. I know health is something mentally and physically that, I really try to make sure that I put on the top of my radar, because once that too falls apart, I think that's makes everything really, really difficult and challenging to do. So I think recognizing that and taking the time to really focus on that is a quality that I'm really, really making sure that I take the time to work on.
I am so impressed by the level of introspection that you've displayed and evolution as just a person.
Just trying to work on it, trying to be a better version, just for myself, but also for the people around me.
Yeah. It's important to understand what that healthy kind of relationship with yourself looks like, or with a partner, 100%. With friends and family. And I think it's just really nice to be able to understand that. And It takes experience. You've understood your journey, your past, your present. give us a peek into your future. What does the future look like for Pankti?
I am super pumped for 2024, especially, with the events. I'm sitting here right now planning out my 2024 calendar year. And, I'm working through all the January events right now and just trying to make sure that, I'm able to work with the creators. I'm excited to see what the new opportunities come my way. And a lot of it will be spontaneous. A lot of it will be when I'm out and about meeting some people and being like, hey, let's work on this together. Yeah. But I'm also super excited for and the company that we've established. I'm super excited to announce that we're taking Masala Mixtape to LA next year or at San Francisco.
My gosh.
We're leaning towards LA, but I think
my gosh,
we're super excited to bring that and take it on tour. And we're going to make sure to do it in New York as well. So the people that have been enjoying for the last couple of years, we're going to continue that. So we'll get back to you on the Masala LA or SF, but leaning LA. And we're going to take it to New York. And then my personal goal is in the years to come, I want to take Masala all around the country. And one day, this is me dreaming and hopefully manifesting, but I would love to make a one Masala mixtape where every single person around the country, the world, kind of like a Coachella, are coming together, enjoying the artists, enjoying the community. So that's the long-term dream, but I'm super excited for 2024.
Oh my gosh. First of all, thank you so much for sharing that.
Of course.
Second of all, congratulations
on
my jaw was literally on the floor when you were talking. That's incredible.
Thank you so much. Incredible. We're so excited to make this happen. I mean, this is a whole team effort and the whole community is all going to come together, I'm sure, as they have been to make this possible. But we're so excited to take it to LA. I mean, LA has been such a hub for pop, shift, known as and such amazing South Asian groups and communities. So we're so excited to tap into that market and excited to make some new friends.
I am so proud of you.
Thank you.
And everything that you've accomplished.
I'm super hyped about that. I'm also really excited within the genetic space as well. I'm really ideating right now to come up with an idea that I'm so excited to, pitch to investors to create of my own. So next year, also for 2024, I'm hoping to have my own genetics company under my belt and find a way to increase access and awareness for genetic testing, especially within the South Asian community.
You wear all these hats and you do it so well. I'm flabbergasted. I'm in awe of you.
Oh, you're so sweet. I'm trying.
You're doing a great job.
Thank you.
You're doing a great job.
Thank you.
So as we wrap up, just one last question.
Sure.
In the midst of all the noise in the world, what's your key message to people listening?
The only certainty in life, I think, is uncertainty. And I think, life is so interesting. No matter what, things will happen which you didn't anticipate, you didn't expect. But I'm a big believer of, it's okay because that's normal. And I want to normalize that for everyone. And I really believe listen to yourself and follow what it is and just keep doing what you truly love. And if you haven't found that yourself just yet, it's okay because in that uncertainty, I believe that you'll figure it out and keep spreading that love in the world.
I love that. That so eloquently wrapped up the common thread in this discussion. So
thank you.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me today. Sandalina, this is incredible. What you are creating, the environment that you've had. And I'm excited to see all the people that you bring on to this and I'm excited to be here today. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, that means a lot. Thank you all so much for watching. Tune in next week for another episode. And in the meantime, I'm your host, Sandalina, signing off.